Hello, Chelan County. I am Lacey Stockton, and this is
Layla.
Layla. This is my daughter Layla in honor of Take Your Kid to Work Day on April 28th. Layla here will be helping me host live from Lake Chelan Chamber of Commerce, and our guests are just across the street at the Chelan Earth Day Fair, which is happening today until 4 p.m. And we have lots of cool gifts that help you save energy and water, because that's how we roll around here. And we also have 5 special guests with us, in addition to this one, who are going to explain their work around Lake Chelan and how they are making it a better place, not just on Earth Day, but year round. Welcome. Hey, Tamie. So, Tamie,
Hi.
where are you?
Well, I'm at the Earth Day Fair going on right now at the park in Chelan. And as you can see behind me, there are lots of booths, lots of people. We've had a great turnout, even though the weather is not quite as warm as it has been in the past. But it's still a wonderful place to come. So please come down.
Awesome. And I am so grateful for you to join us today. You are one of the magical little elves that make this fantastic day possible. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do with the Earth Day Fair and what you brought with you today?
Well, I'm the garden coordinator and have been doing this for several years now. And Earth Day, we have plants. We have lots of bedding plants, tomatoes, peppers, different kinds of squash, all kinds of things that are almost ready to go into your garden. When the weather cooperates, we'll be able to plant all that stuff into our gardens here soon. And we have repeat customers every year. They come down here and they look for the plants, and to grow in their gardens. And with the way things are going, a lot of people are gardening and just loving it. So
Yeah.
yes,
Tomatoes have never tasted better than from your own plant.
exactly, especially those heirlooms.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tamie, what would be your favorite edible plant that grows easily in our area?
Oh, well, that's a great question. I like nasturtiums. They are very tasty, very colorful. They look great on a salad plate. Um, they are early, in this cold weather. You could probably start your nasturtiums right now and have beautiful flowers in your garden as well as things that you could put on your salad plate.
Do you know what's super funny? We were walking just over from where you are, over back here, and Layla says, "Hey, what are those flowers we put on our salad? Because I want to talk about those."
Aw. So you
So
grow
she agrees with
nasturtiums,
you.
Layla.
Nasturtiums are happening. We also really like arugula, which seems to be a perennial at our house.
Oh,
It
good.
started in a section, and we don't water it at all. It's just like kind of in the shade of a cherry tree, and it has taken over in 5 years. And so we don't. It's like the ultimate carefree edible.
That's awesome. Yes, we like those carefree ones
Yeah,
that reseed themselves, right?
totally. All right. And
Good.
so tell us a little bit more. I mean, how long have you been doing Earth Day?
Well, I was thinking about that. I'm not really sure. It's been at least 12 years. Of course, we missed the last few years, but I'm glad it's back again because I've missed seeing the people. I always think of Earth Days as the place, as the time when everyone comes out of the woodwork. We've been hibernating all winter, and now we get together. We get to see all our friends and just enjoy the day. And Earth Day is kind of special. I honestly don't remember how long it's been going. 35, 30. Help me out there. 36
Didn't it
years.
start in the 70s?
It has been a long time, and it has not missed a year. Like, even though the last couple years it was virtual, but um, other than that, dedicated people. I can't even remember the names of all the people that started it, but just so dedicated. And Anne and Randy Brooks have just kept it going. So many great people on the committee, and they just They work really hard. They start, actually, they never stop. Every month they meet, they just coordinate so well, and it's just a really fun committee to be on. And then they put this amazing event together, and we have just all different kinds of booths. It's wonderful, and yeah, a place to meet and reconnect after the winter.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I wanted to dive a little bit. You know, this show, the Power Hour, normally we talk about saving energy, but we're into conservation of all kinds. And I know that water in the desert can be a really quick way to waste to waste a resource that we have.
Very true.
So you're a gardening guru. What kind of tips do you have for folks who might be looking out there? It's spring, looking at their yard and thinking, this year I'm going to get out there, plant some plants. What would you say in terms of planning for conservation in their yard?
Well, that's a great question. We live in a time where we have a lot of resources as far as drip lines, drip tapes, rather than just overhead watering, which is drip lines are better for your garden anyway, and they soak in quickly. You don't have all the waste of overhead watering. And I mean, we are very, very fortunate that we live in a valley where we have this beautiful, beautiful lake. So a lot of people have irrigation, but still, drip lines, I would highly recommend drip lines. But you can also get garden mulch and put that down over top of your plants down your rows, and that can help conserve water as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So everything in the valley, in Chelan Valley, drains to the lake. Is that accurate?
I would I would probably guess so. I mean, the earth does a wonderful job of taking care of I mean, that's dirt helps to absorb chemicals and nasty things that we don't really want before it gets into the lake. But sometimes it just goes straight to the lake. So we want to be very careful. We definitely promote organic gardening. My husband gets kind of upset with me when I'm out at 12 o'clock at night killing bugs because that's the best time to squish your bugs
At
that are
midnight?
that are at midnight. You just put on a headlamp. Well, I guess you don't have to wait till midnight, but dark, and you go out and squish your bugs with a headlamp, and that's the best time. I know that's not feasible for everybody, but it works for us because we do like to garden organically, and we will use neem oil once in a while, which is a natural pesticide. But we don't want to get rid of our ladybugs and our praying mantis either. So we just have to be careful. And so squishing bugs at midnight has become a pastime of mine.
That's a real pro tip. I like that. So why midnight?
Yeah.
Because that's when all the bugs come out, or
Well, as soon as, yeah, usually between 11 and 12, they like to have their little parties on my plants. So I don't know why.
all right, cool. I'm learning something. Great. And so for those who are watching the live stream, so one thing, you can totally come down and ask questions as well of our guests today. But if you have any questions for Tamie or our other guests, just type them into the chat. I can see them and we can ask her any of your gardening questions or anything else. Layla, did you have another question about gardening? No, you're just happy that nasturtiums were mentioned?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
you're going to be a good future gardener.
Yeah. So far, our brambles have really been the easiest thing. Besides the feral arugula and our semi-feral brambles, our garden hasn't always worked out super well, I have to say. Garlic's also been a hit. I think in general, alliums have worked for us because I hear you about setting up irrigation and things like that, but sometimes, you like go camping and you come back and
Right.
tomatoes just don't really like that kind of up and down of watering in the
No.
same way that like alliums like garlic and chives and onion, they don't mind that.
Exactly. They're very hardy.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, great. Is there anything else that you wanted to share today? Because is Amanda there as well?
Amanda, I'm not sure. Is Amanda here? Oh, there's Amanda. Yes.
Okay,
Is she
cool.
your next guest?
she is our next guest, but I didn't want to cut off any of your awesome messages for us. So please.
Well, I will just maybe show a picture here of everything that's going on. And as you can see, all the different booths. I mean, there's just so many. The park there's a lot of people just filtering in and out. There's great entertainment, and it goes on till 4 o'clock, like you said. So thank you, Lacey and Layla. It was nice to meet you.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Tamie. We'll see you after we're done on the power hour.
Good. Come over and ask me some more questions, Layla. I'd love to help you. Okay. Talk to you later.
Thanks. Bye. All right. Our next guest is Amanda Newell from the Cascadia Conservation District. Hey, Amanda.
Hi.
Can you hear us
How are
okay?
you? Yeah.
I love your scarf. This is really cute.
Thank you. Thought I was done with winter gear for the year, but apparently not.
Nope. You know, I don't know. Where do you live?
I live in Leavenworth, so we've had snow all week long. Yeah, definitely got snow. I actually have this great photo, though, on Thursday at 9 a.m. It looks like it's January, and then at 3 p.m., it looks like it's May. Just like we went from, winter to spring in a few hours. But
yeah,
that's
totally.
the spring in the Pacific Northwest, so I love the season, so I guess I shouldn't complain.
Yeah, exactly. We're just along for the ride anyway. Like, there's nothing we can do about it.
Nope.
All right, cool. Can you tell us a little bit about what the Cascadia Conservation District does?
Sure. So we work with local landowners to manage natural resource concerns on private property, and we're a non-regulatory grant-funded organization. We work throughout Chelan County. We have a board of supervisors that kind of directs our work, and then we have technical staff that work collaboratively with those local landowners and community members to implement conservation projects that include water resources, forestry, forest health, and wildfire preparedness. We do salmon recovery work and riparian restoration. I'm the education and outreach specialist for Cascadia, so I run our youth education programs and come to fun events like this to reach out to the community and share what we do and find out how we can help folks. We've got a little something for everyone. We also do some urban agriculture type programs. So we try to have something for everyone. Feel free to reach out to us anytime, and we're happy to talk through any conservation or natural resource concerns you have. And we've got a salmon safe program that's real active, and I was excited to see one of our farms out here, Chelan Butte. So make sure to check them out if you're around the fair today. They've got organic apples and cherries and blueberries and some really nice little lavender sachets that I was excited about. So yeah.
Wow. Cool. Yeah, it's really early in the
range
season
of things.
Yeah, to get all this like local produce. That's great.
Yeah.
All right.
Amanda, what work is Cascadia Conservation District doing by Lake Chelan?
By Lake Chelan, yeah. So I mentioned the Salmon Safe program, and that's pretty active. We're actually going to have a farm tour in May. I believe it's the 26th. That will be related to the Salmon Safe program, and so it'd be a great opportunity for producers to learn more about that. We actually help farmers and orchardists get through the certification process and pay any related fees. So if anyone's interested in learning more about that, Elizabeth Jackson in our office would be the best person to talk to. And then the Chelan school districts do participate in some of our youth education programs. So we're always excited to see them coming out. We do a lot of forestry work and wildfire preparation type work in the Chelan area and throughout the county. But we do have a chipping program coming up. The sign up is still open until April 30th. So if you go onto our website, there's information on that and a registration form. And anyone in Chelan County can participate, but we've had a lot of folks from Chelan and Manson specifically be part of that program. So, and we also have Firewise Communities in the Chelan area because of that program.
Okay, so what's a Firewise community?
So a Firewise community, it can either be a community that already has an HOA, and so they're more of an established one, or it can just be a group of neighbors that want to get together and create a Firewise community on a smaller scale. And the idea is that the neighbors would help prepare their neighborhood for wildfires to come through the area. So that wildfire preparedness piece again, creating defensible space around homes. They get together and do work parties. They host a Firewise Day every year. So again, that could be a work party or just a get together where they do some planning for the upcoming year. They can participate in our chipping program. Some of the communities have gone out and gotten grant funding for their own chipping programs, just specific to their community. Also done fuels reduction work within the community. So a lot of different things. It's just a way to organize several neighbors to prepare their homes for wildfire potential versus just individual landowners here and there throughout the community.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense, because you could do the best job on the planet, but if all of the neighbors around you are just a big fuel source, it probably won't end well.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I really like how over the last couple of decades, I think we've started to recognize like wildfire is a thing. It's not going anywhere. It's always been a part of the place where we live, and so the question becomes like, how can we adapt to live with it instead of trying to fight it or stop it, which has caused a lot of the problems that we're seeing now, because there's just so much more foliage and stuff that can be burned because we prevented it from burning when it was a lot smaller. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. There's a great presentation called The Era of Megafauna by Dr. Paul Hesburgh, and he talks a lot about the history of the forests in our area and about the forest management over the years, and then kind of what some potential solutions are moving forward. But it's available just online if you Googled Era of Megafires, and I think that gives folks a really good idea of what's going on in our area and some steps that we can take to reduce our risk. And then Department of Natural Resources, we partner with them for a Wildfire Ready Neighbors program, and that is going on right now. Folks can sign up to have an expert come around to their house and do a home fire risk assessments. So they'd walk around with the landowner and identify some areas where they have potential for wildfire damage, and just work with them on coming up with solutions. It may be something as simple as limbing up some trees, or maybe there's a few trees that need to be taken down. It's very personalized to that landowner versus just kind of giving broad advice like we would, out at an event like this. You really get that one-on-one perspective. So if anyone's interested in that, they can sign up through our website, cascadiacd.org, or through the Washington Department of Natural Resources, their Wildfire Ready Neighbors program.
Cool. That's a great resource. That's one question that, I get a lot of questions related to air quality, because when we talk about saving energy, one of the things in summer is it gets hot and smoky, sometimes at the same time, which is not ideal, because you don't want to have like a window AC that's bringing in all of this wildfire smoke, which is really toxic, into your home. But you also want to stay cool. So we've talked about that in the past. But I like that there's this other piece of it where, looking outside your home, thinking about how we can change our landscapes to also sort of reduce the amount of fuels and perhaps contain a little bit of the wildfires, at least on that, more in the urban space or where we have homes. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the chipping program is another great way to, get rid of those fuels that are causing fire potential, but without, adding to air quality issues.
Yes. Yeah, instead of just burning all of your waste, your yard waste.
Yeah.
You have, so it's just a little trailer that the conservation district will bring to your property. You don't even have to you don't have to load it up,
right?
Drag it over. Like, you guys go to people's houses and their properties, and provided they have, appropriate little organized wood piles, you'll chip it and leave them with this fantastic mulch at the end of it that they can use to prevent all of the moisture in their soil from evaporating. So
exactly. Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great. We try to make it as easy as we can for folks to participate. And yeah, so if anyone's interested in hearing more about that program, definitely reach out to us. The other thing I wanted to mention, and this is specifically for Chelan County residents, is we are hosting, along with the City of Chelan, free yard waste disposal days at the transfer station. That is May 6th and 7th. It's a Friday and Saturday. And again, that's only for Chelan residents.
Where's the transfer station?
It's kind of out towards Walmart, kind of across from that Walmart traffic light there.
So May 6th, May 7th, if folks have yard waste that's not, chipper quality, but they want to get rid of it besides just igniting it on fire, they can bring it to the transfer station. And what will happen to it there?
They will work their magic with it. I can tell you exactly what, to be honest.
Cool.
But I think they mix it in with some of the other waste, and it kind of helps things decompose. But yeah, the transfer station folks could answer that in better detail than I could.
Okay, sorry. I'm asking. I really like asking questions about where did it come from and what's away. Because as we know, throwing things away isn't a real place.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Which, speaking of, is Julie around by chance?
She is. I will pass you on to her. Okay,
cool. Is there anything else that you want to share with us today, Amanda? I'm so grateful for you to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Just to reiterate that, we've got a little something for everyone. So reach out to us or peruse our website, Facebook page. We look forward to connecting with the community now that we're all able to get back out and in person together.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much. It was great seeing you.
Thank you. Yep, you too.
All right. Bye. All right. Our next guest is Julie McCoy from 911 Glass Rescue and the Lake Chelan Rotary. Hi, Julie.
Hi. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
I've been at work, so I'm a little tired, but I'm here.
Okay. Well, thanks for taking your lunch break with us.
Yeah, we've been crushing glass all morning.
Oh, really? Oh, when was the inaugural crush?
Oh, the inaugural crush was in July. I believe it was July the 10th. So we've been at it for a while now, and we've really perfected our art, I think. We're much more efficient, and mostly everybody has a good time out there.
Is it like, can you get a little stress relief? Like, can you like throw the bottles into the mouth or?
Yes, there's nothing like crushing glass for stress relief. Yes, it's very cathartic.
Okay, great. So why don't you explain what we are making jokes about so that everyone can come in on our inside joke here?
That's fair. Okay, so 911 Glass Rescue is a community service of the Lake Chelan Rotary Club. Our club here has been active for many years in a number of community service projects, from pocket parks around the community to we do wheelchair ramps and handrails for the elderly and disabled year-round. So we're really, that is one of our main missions, is serving our community. And in, I think it was 2018, the city took away the opportunity for residents to recycle their glass. And there was a huge public outcry about that, because people here actually were very well trained and very diligent about taking their glass out to the recycle center for recycling. So we saw that need, and we started looking at how we might meet it. And we eliminated a number of prospects that involved shipping glass to a distant location. In our case, the Seattle area has a large, what's called a cullet processor, which is an entity that makes the glass into a form that can then be used by a glass manufacturer and made into new glass bottles and jars. Because we are so far away from the Seattle area, and the entity there would not pay for our glass or any of the transportation costs. That was a non-starter from a sustainability perspective, and we didn't like the carbon footprint associated with shipping glass, 3.5 hours away. So we started looking around for a way that we might repurpose glass into other products, specifically in our case, sand and aggregate. And we found a company out of upstate New York, Richfield Springs, New York, been in business about 25 years, and they make state-of-the-art glass pulverizing equipment. It's
Hmm.
called Andela Products. So we ended up buying, with the help of the city of Chelan and the Department of Ecology, we ended up buying a pulverizing system that turns glass bottles and jars into sand and aggregate. All of it has rounded edges, so it's really nice to handle. We're selling the product for $5 per 5-gallon bucket. We're getting huge traction. We sold 10 buckets today. Every time we work, we sell some product, and people are liking it. It's a really nice end product. So we've solved a local problem with a local solution, and we feel good about that.
That's great. That totally makes sense.
Well, Julie, what made you focus on glass recycling?
The demand in the community, actually, people were calling into Cozy, the local radio station, and complaining very loudly about having to. A lot of people who were taking their glass back to the west side when they
Hmm.
would go to visit relatives, and people were quite unhappy about it. So yeah, the process started actually with a couple of Manson High School students, Megan Clausen and Devin Smith, and they bought a little single bottle crusher. So this thing did one bottle at a time. So just to put that in perspective, today, this morning, we did 4,500 pounds of glass. That's 4,500 wine bottles that we
Yeah, it's a
did
lot
in
of
a couple of
wine.
hours, right?
I'm
It's a
not
lot.
judging, just saying.
It's a lot. So yeah, so that process was pretty painful. That little machine is still in Megan's parents' garage, but we said we need something a little bit more efficient. So, so that's how we got into the Andela Products machine, which does, by contrast, 1 to 2 tons per hour. So it's
Wow.
pretty fast. It's one of their smaller machines, if you can believe that, but it's good for our purposes.
Huh. Okay, cool. And what are you doing with all the aggregate, all of the glass sand that's coming out of it?
There are so many potential uses under the Washington Department of Transportation requirements. Glass can be up to 20% of a number of different construction applications.
Hmm.
It can be used in asphalt. It can be used mixed with cement. It has a great. It's a great landscaping product because glass, unlike mined sand and aggregate, glass has a negative charge that attracts water. So around here in our dry environment, putting the glass around your plants helps to keep the moisture there. And it also repels insects because it functions. There's a product out called diatomaceous earth that a lot of people who you're nodding, so you know, yeah. So I lived in Southern California where snails were a huge problem, and I gardened with diatomaceous earth. Well, this stuff has the same, our sand has the same properties, but
Oh,
it's completely renewable. I mean, as long as we
wow.
have wineries, and I think we
Right.
will.
Yeah. I'm curious though, why don't the wineries take back their bottles?
You know, that's a great question. So it would require a change in legislation. They're not really allowed to rebottle with the same bottles. So there's really
Wow.
nothing to do but to discard it. And that is what happens in this country every year. In the US alone, 9 to 11 million tons of glass is disposed of and mostly ends up in the landfill where of course it it just sits. It takes about 1 to 2 million years for glass to decompose. So it is forcing the early retirement of landfills.
Sure. Yeah, it's just taking up a lot of space that it doesn't need to, when it
That's right.
could be bothering insects that are trying to eat your produce.
It could be doing that. Yep.
Cool. Huh. All right. Could you tell me a little bit more about Lake Chelan Rotary and kind of your work there? I know that you guys sponsored a couple of projects actually, where you were helping Lake Chelan thrive throw out their old windows and replace them with energy efficient windows. Is that something that is common with your projects, or what kind of projects are you doing up there?
I would say that the environmental focus is real common with the exception of 911 glass rescue. The projects tend to be more service to the community via like Singleton Park. You're going to talk to Brian Patterson next, and he was very involved in the Singleton Park playground up in Manson. So that was a big project of, I think it was last year. You'll have to ask Brian that, but yeah, so we do like a lot of pocket parks throughout the community, and like I said, wheelchair ramps and guardrails, handrails.
Okay. All right. No, that's really helpful to make our community more accessible and more fun. I like that piece. That's
Right.
great. Well,
Yeah,
is Brian around? Would he be
he
willing to chat
is.
about these parks?
I'm sure he's standing right here. Do you want to talk to him?
Sure. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us today, Julie?
Well, okay, yeah, I do need to share our hours of operation. So we're at the Chelan Recycle Center through a partnership with the City of Chelan. We operate every Saturday morning from 9 to noon. There is no drop off of glass. You can't leave it there, but you can come during our hours 9 to noon on a Saturday morning. We have lots of volunteers who are ready to take your glass, and we charge a very modest fee, 2 cents a pound. So for reference, a wine bottle weighs about 1 pound. So most people who drop off glass don't pay us more than a couple of dollars, and then they leave us a tip because we are a 501c3 nonprofit entirely run by volunteers. So it's a pretty amazing effort. So come see us.
Cool. Yeah, and you get to throw wine bottles.
That's right. You can throw stuff, break stuff.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Julie. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Okay, see ya.
Bye. I'll get you, Brian.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right. So our next guest is Brian Patterson with the Lake Chelan Conservancy. It sounds like he's going to be chatting about the parks that Julie mentioned. Hi, Brian.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you doing?
Good.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us.
You bet.
Julie mentioned that you had your hand in creating a new park up in Manson. Is that true?
Well, yes, sort of. So this is one of the things that Chelan Basin Conservancy has kind of really been focused on. Is it turns out that when they raised the lake level due to the dam, roughly 1930, a lot of the roads went underwater. Not surprisingly, well, all those roads still have a legal right-of-way associated with them that belongs to the public. And so what we really advocated for is due to the fact that the majority of the Lakeshore and for Schlann is privately owned, and it's pretty hard to come by new public property for the public to be able to access the lake. Why not use these street ends as a means of getting into the lake? So out in Manson, we've got about a half a dozen of these kind of legacy street ends that go into the lake. And actually, just through volunteers, one has already been cleared out on Bennett Road out there. And we're looking at a second one on Kettle-Cassoon, if I'm pronouncing that right. And so we're going to have a volunteer work party come out there and clear away some brush and just kind of open it up so that a few people will be able to go in, and if they want to go swimming or bring their kayak or whatever.
Cool. I love that idea. It's like reclaiming public space.
Exactly.
That's great. Cool. What other things does sorry, I keep calling it Lake Chelan Conservancy. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That's
Land
okay.
Basin Conservancy. Although I'm assuming the basin ends in the lake. There is a correlation, but I'm sorry for botching your name.
No problem. Yeah, Chelan Basin Conservancy, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. It was established roughly 10 years ago. It was very focused on a single issue at the time. This was way before my time with them. But that issue that was related to the Three Fingers fill in the lake was resolved through legal action in 2018. So since then, we've kind of been reinventing Chelan Basin Conservancy, and because we really think it's important for this area to have an environmental group that can advocate on behalf of the public for a variety of things. And so over the last 2 or 3 years, we've been focused primarily on 3 different things. And one is the lake access, and that's primarily revolved around these street ends. Another is just preserving the lake itself in terms of water quality and aquatic invasive species. And we're not the only group, obviously, that is doing this. And so we partner with Keep It Blue and Lake Chelan Research Institute. I also sit on the technical board for Lake Chelan Research Institute. So we're focused on that. Around Chelan, if you see these clean, dry drain signs around, which are encouraging boaters to make sure, especially if they've come from another water body, to make sure that their boat has been clean, the water, any water in it drained out, because you don't want to carry invasive species over, from another water body. Anyway, Chelan Basin Conservancy put up those signs around the area. And then the third area has to do with old orchard lands in this area. So back in the first half of the 20th century, lead arsenate was used as a pesticide in all the orchards here. Everybody was using it. They just didn't really know any better at the time. And unfortunately now that's left all those lands contaminated with lead and arsenic. And so we've worked with the Department of Ecology, and they've now developed a new program basically to ensure that people, when they go to redevelop these orchard lands, put residential housing on there, that they're protecting themselves and future residents from contamination there. So those kind of historically, over the last several years have been what we focused on. And now we're kind of looking at a fourth area, which has to do with the Chelan Butte here. And there's about 900 acres currently for sale up on the Chelan Butte, which we all love to see in its natural state, as it sits as a backdrop to Chelan right now. Well, those 900 acres, the majority of those are actually zoned for tourist accommodations. And so a lot of people here may be familiar with the Lookout development, which is all mostly second homes, vacation homes. Well, you could put 2 lookouts up there on Chelan Butte. It's zoned for 800 homes. And so what we'd really like to see is, instead of that land being developed, have it be conserved in some way, shape, or form through a land trust, through the city of Chelan. So we've spoken with Trust for Public Land, trying to get their insights on how this might be possible to do. So those are kind of the 4 things that Chelan Basin Conservancy has been focused on, and we're just kind of grassroots, relatively small organization. Going into today, we had about 30 members. Already picked up 8 new ones today, so we're hopefully.
Wow, it's a recruiting event.
Yep.
That's great.
Brian, is lead arsenic toxic?
Yeah, so unfortunately, lead arsenate, it was used as a pesticide, so it was toxic to insects. Unfortunately, it's toxic to human beings as well. And so both lead and arsenic, which are the 2 elements that it's comprised of, have very adverse health effect on human beings. Lead is for young children. It stunts development, and things like that. So we really keep children away from that. And arsenic is a carcinogen, which means it causes cancer in humans. So we just want to minimize contact between people and these ground. And Department of Ecology has developed some very straightforward methodologies for basically isolating that contaminated soil from contact with humans.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like there's a couple ways to remediate or to deal with it. One of them is that you can kind of create a barrier and then bring in different soil in your yard so that there's sort of a separation, because the issue with it is that it's not water soluble, right? Once it's there, it just hangs out there indefinitely.
Correct. Well, they're both chemical elements, so they don't decompose in any way, shape, or form. And then, yes, it turns out that they have a very strong affinity for soil particles. So the lead and the arsenic attach themselves to soil particles. So as long as the soil particles don't go anywhere, then the contamination doesn't go anywhere. They stopped using it 70 years ago, and you still find the contamination right near the surface of the soils. And just hasn't gone anywhere in 70 years. But in terms of human exposure, the problem is they call it just incidental ingestion. So if you live on land that's contaminated with these soil particles, you will, just by virtue of being there, they will get on your hands, and then you eat a potato chip, and you put your hand in your mouth. It gets on things in the house, it gets into the house, it gets in the carpet dust and so forth. You don't want to have infants crawling on the carpet that's now contaminated with this dust. So yeah, it doesn't go anywhere. It's stuck to the soil particles, but the soil particles, if you are living on these lands, will eventually, some of them will make their way into your body through ingestion primarily. Inhalation to a much lesser degree. Wind blows dust around, you breathe it in.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say, as Canadians, we wanted to put a public service announcement out there that you should take off your shoes before entering your home, Americans, because that can
Yes,
help remove some of those pollutants from coming in and being inhaled.
that is correct. And I would also point out that the Department of Ecology on their website has a list of things that you can do to help mitigate, the actual exposure. So if it is present on your property, and there are plenty of homes that are built on old orchard lands, that's just the way it is right now, it exists. But there are things you can do to minimize that. So don't plant a vegetable garden in the native soil, on your property. Do a raised bed, bring in clean soil, and plant your vegetables in that clean soil. And it actually says on the website, vacuum your house more often. So some people
Come
don't want to
on.
clean their house that much,
Ugh.
but yeah, so the more you can vacuum up that dust, hopefully you have a vacuum cleaner with a very good filtration system on it, so you're not just resuspending it in the air. But that's one of the things that they list on their website. I don't know if they say taking your shoes off, but it's right along the same lines. Keep that contamination from coming into your house.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you bringing this up because I don't think we often think about testing our soil when we move into a new place, but it's a good idea. It's really inexpensive, really straightforward to do. You just take a couple, little bit of soil from different parts, send it into a lab. It costs, maybe $10 or something like that. And then you can also get it tested at the same time, not just for toxins, but also for certain qualities that you want when you're growing plants. So getting your soil tested, I think we should all put that as a checklist item.
I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because hello, the Department of Ecology will come out and test your soil for free. So they actually have a handheld device. It's called an X-ray fluorescence spectrometer, and they can actually just dig a shallow hole and stick this device right up against the dirt, and it gives you an instantaneous reading of the amount of lead and arsenic in there. And so they'll tell you right there when they're doing the testing what they find. So we would,
Where do you sign
advocate.
up for that?
So again, you go to the Department of Ecology website. They have a whole series of web pages that are dedicated to legacy orchard lands, and so the contact information is there for doing that. You actually can just email them. They provide you an email address. Just email the request. They're out here, fairly frequently, on a monthly basis, and they're out here doing that. They come from Yakima. But yeah, it's at no cost at all. And so if you're on old orchard land, why not? Why not know if it's an issue or not? And the other thing the Department of Ecology recently put up on a website is actually a map that shows where all of the old orchard land is throughout the state of Washington, but you can zoom into the Chelan area. And so you can actually type in an address, it'll zoom into that, it'll tell you. And they base that on historical aerial photos of the area to see where orchards were and were not located. And so it's a way to find out. And it's just part of trying to educate the public, minimize exposure, just to kind of do the right things.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. All right. Well, is Phil around by chance?
He is here.
Okay. Well, before you go, is there anything else that you wanted to share with us? This is really great information, but how can folks, get involved? It sounds like a lot of your work is related to folks who live in the actual area that you're working. So how can they get involved?
Yes, well, so I would make sure to get out there. It looks like you've got it up there on the screen. Go to our website. We're actually in the process of completely updating our website. So in the next week or so, we'll have a new landing page there. It'll be a lot more informative. So I think that will be helpful. Join Chelan Basin Conservancy. We actually are running a special if you're down here at Earth Day today, $20 to only $25. If you join today, I'll enter you in a raffle for a really beautiful metal print photograph of the upper end of the lake. But yeah, go to our website, learn more. There's ways to contact us through the website, so I'd recommend that. And then I'd also throw out there, we currently have a board of 4 members. We'd like to expand that to maybe half a dozen. So if anybody, really wants to get involved with what we're doing, we'd love to have more people on our board of directors.
All right, cool. Well, thank you, Brian. Thanks so much for joining us today and for sharing about all the great resources that it sounds like you'll have on your new homepage soon.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. To both of you. You guys have a great day.
All right, you too.
And I'll
Thanks.
hand this off to Phil.
All right, perfect. So we are alluding to our last guest joining us at Chelan Earth Day Fair. We have Phil Long, who is the ED of Lake Chelan Research Institute and Keep It Blue Lake Chelan. Hey, Phil.
Hey.
Hi. How are you?
Good. Doing well, thanks. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you all right.
Hey, I want to make sure that props work here so you can see Asian clams here, Corbicula fluminea, an invasive species in the lake.
Wait. Bring it back up here. Let's get a good inspection.
Okay. Yeah, look at that. You can actually see the individual shells. There's my finger for scale. These are an invader species, just kind of taken over Lake Chelan for clams anyway.
How did they get here?
So the whole Asian clam story is pretty interesting, actually. So it turns out that the first observation was in Nanaimo, BC in 1924 when someone picked up a dead clamshell, like the ones I just showed you. After that, it was 1938 in the lower Columbia River. And so then they actually began to spread further south along the coast and then across the southern US and then north again as the climate warmed. So now they occupy lakes and rivers all over the entire North American continent up to a certain degrees north, where it's too cold for them. But yeah, and then eventually they came up the Columbia River, and then once they're in the Columbia, a quick step right up to, they're sometimes transported on the feet of birds, for example, would be one way they'd get from the Columbia River up to Lake Chelan. Now, you hear varying stories from people about when they saw them first in Lake Chelan. I never, as a kid in the 60s, coming to Lake Chelan, ever remember seeing a clamshell, but there are people who claim that they were around that time that they were first observed. So certainly in the 70s and 80s, they were here. So anyway, that's sort of early. I'm giving away the story here because I want to talk more about the State of the Lake report. Right here it is. If you come to our booth at the fair, the Earth Day Fair here, you can get your own personal copy. So show up there, and a bunch of other things. So the thumbnail sketch about water quality in Lake Chelan. This is the first time we've had a report like this since 1987, and it turns out that you cannot tell the difference in water quality in the middle of the Wapato Basin. So that would be like halfway between Willow Point Park and the state park in the middle of the lake. You can't tell the difference between water quality in 1987 and today. This is very good news for the lake. So the bulk of the water is very stable in its nutrient content over the years. We know this from a number of measures, the most important of which is the oxygen deficit at the bottom of the lake at the end of the summer. So that's a very sensitive measure to nutrient inputs in the lake. So that's the good news for Lake Chelan. The less good news is that if you talk to anybody who spends time along the lakeshore, they will tell you that there's more green stuff growing on the margins of the lake. Attached green algae, it's called periphyton, and there's more of that than we've ever seen in the past. And in fact, there are some waterfront homeowners who will tell you that just starting a couple of years ago, for the first time ever, they saw this growing on the margins of the lake. And so at their dock or their waterfront bulkhead, whatever. And so that's not really good news. And we're trying to understand why that is. Is it additional nutrient loading? Is it just increasing temperatures? And we're very pleased to let everybody know that going forward in 2022, we recently received a grant from the Icicle Fund to start long-term measurement of temperatures along the lakeshore. So we've been measuring temperatures in the middle of the lake monthly for 4 or 5 years now, and there's a long history of various temperature measurements in the middle of the lake, but not so much on the margins. And so we'll have 8 to 10 locations, and want to actually let waterfront homeowners know that they can volunteer to let us use their pier or their moorings to do this water quality monitoring. We want to get homeowners involved, citizen science. And this is why the Icicle Fund, and thank them for this grant. They were interested in doing this because they believe in trying to connect people to place. And so we're excited about that project. So the listeners can reach out and to us at Lake Chelan Research Institute, and we can, I think you can pull the contact information for me off the website and let people know that they can volunteer to read this sensor periodically. They can download it once a month or once a quarter or whenever. It will log for years, literally, but they can find out what the waterfront temperature or the water margin temperatures are doing, and that's the big question. So we know that in some lakes, if temperature on the margins of the lake increases, that will increase periphyton growth. That could be at least part of the explanation, but we want to make sure that we're not increasing the load of nutrients in the lake along the margins. So anyway, questions that you have going forward at this point?
I read that Lake Chelan is ultra oligotrophic. What does that mean?
Okay, so it means little food. Okay, it's oligotrophic means that it's just a tiny amount of nutrients in the lake. So in other words, we have some very specific measures from Lake Chelan, and these are described and plotted in the report. So you can look at this. So total phosphorus is one of those measures. We want the lake water concentration of total phosphorus to be less than 4.5 micrograms per liter. That is a very tiny amount of phosphorus. In fact, chemists have a hard time measuring phosphorus at that level. So this is what it means, and this is what keeps the lake from turning green, basically. And obviously, nobody wants the lake to turn green, right? It's keep it blue, not turn it green. And so we want to make sure that we keep that nutrient load down below this level, 4.5 micrograms per liter. And it's working quite well. It's that way in the middle of the lake. We have done some measurements thanks to help from the rec district at their water intake for their irrigation system. And that data for a year showed that we were seeing some spikes in phosphorus. And we don't know if that really accounts for the increased growth of periphyton. But that's an important measurement, and we want to keep an eye on that, and the temperature being our first effort. So what we hope happens when we get waterfront homeowners involved in monitoring the temperature is that they say, hey, what else could we learn? What else could we be monitoring? And so that's the hope that we have. In fact, down in Lake Tahoe, it's pretty interesting. If you donate $12,000 to TERC, the Tahoe Environmental Research Center, they will build a special nearshore monitoring device which measures several parameters and which actually connects in real time to the cell phone system, and then you can see the data from those. So that's something that we'd like to get going here as well. So I want to mention one other thing that we have done recently, and let's see here if I can find the right sheet. Basically what we did was we've completed, and you can get this if you look at that at our booth, we've completed a invasive species survey for the lake in 2021. That has not been quite released yet. It will be released in June, the report of that survey. But we're very excited about this because it's the first time we've had any information on the amount of milfoil and curlyleaf pondweed and Asian clams growing in the lake that are invasive. That is, they aren't supposed to be here. They weren't here originally, and we probably are going to need to control them just because of the nature of what they do. Nobody likes to feel the Eurasian milfoil grabbing at their feet, right? When you're swimming in a bay on Lake Chelan, and that happens in some places. So we're pretty excited about knowing that now, and we now know that we have over 400 acres of Eurasian milfoil in the lake. So with that information, what we want to do in 2022 is actually test what it's going to take to remove that using something called diver assisted suction harvester, or DASH. So DASH is the
put scuba divers with vacuums in there.
Yep, that's it. That's how it works. And the nice thing about DASH is it doesn't leave bits and pieces of milfoil around, like the kind of things where they chop it up on the surface with a big motor that's turning a giant paddle wheel. This actually targets each individual plant if necessary, and you can then leave behind the native plants. They're usually good, and so unfortunately, there's a lot more milfoil and curlyleaf pondweed in the lake than we had anticipated based on an earlier survey. We don't know exactly how much more because the surveys were so different, but we're very pleased and thankful to Four Peaks for doing such a great job on this. They're an environmental firm out of Wenatchee. We were able to raise 25,000 from private donors and 5,000 contribution from the PUD. So thanks to the private donors and to the PUD. It's very important to be able to track this and see what's going on going forward.
So Phil, what is the biggest issue for Lake Chelan's health for you?
So I believe since we've got the survey done, I'm confident that it is the invasive aquatic plants. And so just because we have to get a grip on this, we don't want it to become like the Columbia River in some places where it's obviously growing to the surface. Now, we have an advantage, and the PUD does a great service by generating power in the lake every year by drawing down the water in the wintertime. That helps a lot. But clearly, we've got an increase in the amount of curlyleaf pondweed that's growing and Eurasian milfoil. And the nice thing about using DASH, if we can use that as the control method, we're actually removing total organic carbon from the lake. This is what's building up to create the periphyton in part. And so by that removal, we hope to be able to turn back the clock, if you will, in terms of lake water quality, get it back to where it was in the past. So that's what we want to do, is just an experiment to figure out what is this area going to have to come up with to be able to, in terms of funding, where are we going to get the funding to push back on the growth of aquatic plants so that we do actually eradicate them or come close to that significant control over time.
Interesting. Yeah. So how would people stay kind of on the pulse with the work that you're doing? It sounds like you have some new grants to do a little bit more research, understand the problem as it changes as well. How can people follow you?
So check our website, Lake Chelan Research Institute.org or .com. And we'll try to keep everything up to date. In June, we will put the invasive species survey up online. People will be able to look at that. That'll have access to all the data, and people can go in and zoom in, for example, on their particular part of the lake. How much milfoil is here? And so that's one way. The other way is volunteering. We've got lots of work to do, various things going on. We talked, of course, about the temperature survey and logging and monitoring. And so that's a great way for people who have a vested interest, the waterfront homeowners, to be involved and help support our efforts. So the other exciting thing you'll see if you come to our booth today, we have our remotely operated vehicle, an ROV, that eventually we want to take to the bottom of the lake. So you can actually see that. We have that at our booth. We can turn the lights on and show you a video of some of the dives that we've taken. We've just gotten this in operation. And so we're very excited about being able to actually eventually go to the deepest part of Lake Chelan and see what's down there. Now, some people say, Phil, that's going to be real boring down there. But I just tell them, well, until the great white sturgeon swims by, yeah, it might be boring. But then it's all of a sudden going to be really exciting. So we have a whole list of science that we can do with the remotely operated vehicle. And so we're excited to learn some of the things that we can learn from that. And one of them is monitoring the growth of the invasive species, the aquatic plants that shouldn't be there. And so we can go back to the same spot time and time again during the course of a summer's growing season and sample those plants, see how they're changing, and keep that would be one way that we could put that information up on the web, and people could keep track of what's growing out of sight in their lake. So,
okay. Well, that was a great seg to remind folks that we are at the Chelan Earth Day Fair at Chelan Riverwalk Park, just right next to downtown Chelan. There's a ton of stuff going on there, from Tamie's veggie starts to your rover that's going to go to the bottom of Lake Chelan and everything in between. I know that Ann and Randy brought out some electric vehicles. There's a ton of stuff, lots of great swag happening, including we're offering free TSVs, that's fancy talk for thermostatic shower valves that will help you save water and energy, free to Chelan County residents. So come on down if you're in the area and say hi to Phil. He's got some cool.
All right. Hey, we have swag too. We have drink cozies. We have stickers and all kinds of stuff you could take away, including your very own copy of the State of the Lake Report. So thanks.
Cool. Well, thanks,
we'll talk
Phil.
to you later.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye. Whew. Well, thank you all for joining us as we chatted with all of the different folks involved in conservation in the Lake Chelan area. Layla, thank you for joining me as co-host today. I really appreciate it. And good questions. A reminder that April 28th is Bring Your Kid to Work, so they can do all the exciting fun stuff and the less exciting fun stuff that you do at work. It's a fun way for kids to learn. We will see you next time on the Power Hour. This is May 18th, back to Wednesdays at noon. Megan Kramer, who is a sustainable building specialist and now also works with the Department of Energy and Washington State University, is going to talk about new construction and how we can make homes that use a lot less energy, yet are still a lot more comfortable and healthy to live in. Aren't you just so excited? All right, we'll see you next time. Bye.